guiding you into the centre of the city when there's no one there. And then, about 5 minutes into this journey on this road, fireworks start erupting around me. I think, but there's no one here. I said, is this just for us? He goes, no, it happens every night. So they just sort of celebration of the city. They got these sort of landing strip lights going into the centre of the town, and fireworks on a nightly basis, sort of celebrating this new dynamic city. And representing a lot of inner Mongolian culture. A lot of the buildings are quite iconic and actually represent a lot of what inner Mongolia is about. Regarding that sort of representation, you really get it in the billboard landscape here. So what this billboard is doing, 1 kilometre long, is basically hiding construction. So in the centre of town of Hohhot, there is a new construction area where they're actually building a lot of new apartments. But it's pretty much like we do here. We sort of hide the construction under some sort of signage or just some Hessian material. Here they're actually much more dynamic in creating this sort of idealised inner Mongolian landscape, where you have the Chinese cowboy, cows, sheep in the background. So I like that sort of duality of the reality of the foreground, the current grassland, the roads coming through the middle, and you have this sort of, always this sort of Western iconography placed over the top of the Chinese landscape. There's a few others over there, like the mock Georgian house. And here you have some sort of English-style oil lamps, or going back to that sort of style and sensation anyway. And I guess one thing, I like this sort of gap of reality as well, hanging through there. But one reason I actually wanted to make this big, there's a couple of reasons why I actually make this bigger than the rest, is I really wanted to focus on the artificiality of the landscape, make it large, mimic the size of the billboard, but also showcase the poor Photoshop skills, or maybe this is intentionally so, but just the way a lot of these landscapes have been artificially created by placing nice little flowers, daffodils in the foreground, maybe mimicking Wordsworth's famous poem. These people have been pasted into the landscape. You can actually see where they've been cut and pasted from some other landscape. Probably the yurt's been placed there as well. For some reason, this person's head's been chopped off. There's actually a person behind here. So I like that sort of crude aspect of it. And Chinese construction is it's so fast and quite crude and quite brutal by Western standards. And that's really what I wanted to showcase with this. And one reason why I am interested, if you read my text panel, is really about this relationship between Australia and China. I mean, our booming economy, or our supposedly booming economy, at least in the mining sector, is dependent on the construction that's happening in China. New cities being built, massive ships being built, all being dependent on our iron ore. But we have to think, how sustainable is this economically? The idea of the ghost city is almost like a threat to our economic, the continuation of our economic boom. And so when people actually look at this picture, it's often a bit confusing and confronting because I don't actually give them enough details regarding what's going on, but then there's a sort of eye for a solution to the idea of actually photographing the end of the billboard there. What else can I say about China? China's great for access. In terms of occupational health and safety, it's not much there. And you're really left to your own to sort of go and explore. There's a freedom to explore. So I actually managed to get into one of these construction sites in the heart of Kangbashi city and just stand up on their bamboo scaffolding, look down into the pit and photograph them as they're pouring new concrete into the foundations. And there's this great quilt-like pattern in that lower picture there in the middle. And the weather is November, we're generally talking around temperatures between -5 and +5. So I presume the quilts are there just to stop the concrete from freezing. I don't know, is there any grano workers here? No. Oh, well, we'll say that's the case. But stop the concrete from freezing, and you just get this nice pattern. What other pictures are there? Oh, waking up from my hotel room. That picture on the bottom, just I'm on about the 5th floor of pretty much a vacant hotel. I didn't really see anyone else apart from my translator and the 2 guides I had in a multi-storey hotel. But the room, the view when I pulled open the window, the curtains on the window was just looking out into this space over here, right into sort of the heart of the new construction of apartments and workers working at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning. Part of the work culture of China is that they just don't rest, from what I could gather. If we thought that the Protestant work culture was quite hard, I think the Chinese work culture is up there again, even higher. And just the whole construction of the new city pretty much from scratch. So the diptych at the end is about the city rising from the desert. Planting of trees which are denuded and still not quite leafy yet. Nothing's growing because it's November, but planting early, getting ready for the spring. And just, there's absurdity. I guess I like absurdity, and going to China is one of the great places you can go to see this sort of level of absurdity, or at least what we may consider to be absurd. It's fun and playful, but there is a serious, perhaps, economic side to this. So I'm not actually providing an answer saying this will be, the future is defunct. It just seems like at the moment that we're not quite sure how China's going to go, and that's what I wanted the sort of the pictures to communicate. And the final pictures over there are really about the artificiality of the landscape. Sort of mimicking what's going on here with the billboard. The one at the top on the right is the National Inner Mongolian Museum. And they really like their iconic structures, just mimicking the actual landscape, or mimicking their iconography, and basically just replicated the grassland. So they've got astroturf on top of the museum, reflecting the grassland, and a concrete bit of paving which you can't actually walk on, representing the rivers within the grassland. And I guess the last one on the bottom is about the idea of what is real in China. There's this sort of fakeness and realness, and there's a great location in the centre of Hobart where old people start flying these kites, which are like hawks or some sort of territorial bird. So there's this feeling of you're not quite sure what's real, what's quite artificial, and I guess that's partly reflected in my idea of what their current economic status is. And hopefully I may have communicated that with these pictures. All right, I'll leave it at that.